They say a lie can travel halfway around the world while the truth is still putting on its shoes. But for Elijah Johnson, the truth never even got the chance to stand. He was 24, a cleaner, a son, a man whose world was as small and orderly as the rooms he tidied. Each day, he polished the flawless surfaces of the Alex family's life, seen, but never truly seen. Until the day a privileged girl's panic turned him from a ghost in their home into a monster in their headlines. Her name was Sophie Alex, picture perfect, and desperately hiding a secret that would crack her world in two. One desperate lie, one misplaced message, one innocent man caught in the crossfire. Night. Elijah's identity was erased, rewritten by the one thing he couldn't clean: prejudice. Because in a system that confuses skin color for character and a wallet for worth, your story isn't written by you. It's written for you. If this story makes you angry, let it. If it makes your heart ache, lean into that. This isn't just about Elijah. This is about every person prejudged, every truth silenced by power, and the staggering cost of a justice system that works better for some than for others. You are listening to Speak Black, the platform for the stories they hoped would stay in the dark. So if you're ready to hear the truth, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell. Because what you're about to hear changes everything. Sophie's voice. He'll take the fall. Nobody will ever believe him. Those 8 words would become the key to his cage. But before they echoed in a silent courtroom, before the gasps and the shattered lives, there was a simple beginning. The day Elijah Johnson walked up the driveway to the Alex mansion, believing it was just another Monday. Elijah Johnson's world was measured in motions. The steady, sweeping arc of the microfiber mop across cool marble. The precise, circular polish of a mahogany table until it shone like dark water. The methodical wiping of a floor-to-ceiling window until it seemed to disappear, leaving only the perfect, emerald lawn of the Alex estate beyond. He was a ghost in the machine of their luxury, a silent figure, ensuring the gears of their world were well-oiled and spotless. Mr. Alex had passed him once this morning, phone pressed to his ear, barking orders about a merger. He hadn't looked up, his eyes sliding over Elijah as if he were part of the wallpaper. Mrs. Alex had floated down the grand staircase, her perfume a cloud of expensive flowers, offering a tight, vacant smile before disappearing into the kitchen. They were pleasant in their way. They paid on time. Their indifference was a shield Elijah had learned to wear. It was better than the alternative. He finished the last window, his muscles humming with a familiar fatigue. He packed his caddy, the bottles of cleaner clinking softly in the vast silence. This was his last job of the day, and the thought was a relief. As he headed out the side entrance, his work boots silent on the stone path, a flicker of movement in an upstairs window caught his eye. It was Sophie, the daughter. She was pacing in her room, her silhouette frantic against the sheer curtains. She dragged a hand through her hair, then stopped, hugging herself tightly. She looked trapped. Elijah paused for only a second. The lives of the rich were a mystery to him, a tapestry of problems he couldn't fathom. Maybe she'd failed a test. Maybe she'd had a fight with her boyfriend. It was none of his business. He lowered his head, pushed the gate open, and stepped out of their world. The bus ride home was a slow reanimation. With each stop, the stiff posture of the cleaner softened into the slouch of a son, a brother, a man. He got off on his block, the air rich with the scent of someone's dinner. Onions, garlic, curry. It was loud and real and his. His family's apartment was a symphony of controlled chaos. The smell of his mother's oxtail stew wrapped around him like a welcome embrace. His little sister, Keisha, was at the small kitchen table, buried in textbooks, her brow furrowed in concentration. "There he is," his mother, Vivian, said, emerging from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a towel. Her smile was a genuine thing, crinkling the corners of her eyes. "Long day, baby?" "The usual," Elijah said, dropping his bag by the door. He kissed her cheek. "Smells good in here." "Better than that lemon-scented bleach you come home smelling like," she teased, her eyes twinkling. She didn't say it, but he saw the flicker of concern in her gaze. She hated him cleaning for other people, thought he was meant for more. She never said that either. She just made sure his favorite meal was waiting. Later, after the stew was eaten and the dishes were done, Elijah retreated to the room he shared with his younger brother. He pulled a worn blue notebook from his backpack. Written on the cover, in bold letters, were the words, "Business Plan." He opened it. Inside were sketches, lists, and calculations. A detailing van, a list of premium, eco-friendly cleaning products. A marketing slogan, "Johnson & Son, excellence is in the details." The son was for a future he hadn't yet created. This was the dream, not just cleaning, but building, creating something that was his, something that couldn't be erased with a single indifferent glance from a man like Mr. Alex. He looked around the small, crowded room, hearing the familiar, comforting sounds of his family through the thin walls. Keisha's laughter from the living room. His mother humming an old hymn in the kitchen. This was his foundation. The Alex mansion was a stage. This was real life. He closed the notebook, a quiet, steady hope settling in his chest. He was saving every dollar. He was on his way. The future was a clean, blank page, and he was ready to write his story on it. He had no idea the story had already been written for him. The world had shrunk to the size of a plastic stick clutched in her trembling hand. 2 lines, 2 stupid, pink lines that had just detonated her perfectly curated life. Sophie's breath hitched, a ragged, useless sound in the pristine silence of her marble bathroom. This couldn't be happening. It was a mistake, a false positive. She'd read about those online. She fumbled in the gold trash can, pulling out the other 2 tests she'd taken, her heart hammering a frantic, sickening rhythm against her ribs. All of them. 2 lines. A unanimous verdict of ruin. Her reflection in the mirror was a stranger's. Wide, terrified eyes. Skin drained of color. She was Sophie Alex, straight-A student, head of the debate team, her father's legacy. She was supposed to be packing for a summer pre-law program at Stanford, not this. This was a problem for other girls. Girls with less to lose. A wave of nausea, unrelated to the pregnancy, washed over her. Her father. Robert Alex wasn't just a parent. He was a force of nature. A man who built his reputation on a foundation of absolute control in the courtroom and in his own home. His love was conditional, a reward for achievements that bolstered the family name. A teenage pregnancy? It wasn't a mistake. It was a betrayal. It would be the one scandal his power and money couldn't simply erase from the front pages. She could already see the look in his eyes. Not disappointment, but cold, utter dissolution, as if she had ceased to be his daughter and had become a liability. She stuffed the damning evidence into an old makeup bag, burying it at the bottom of her bathroom cabinet, a guilty secret now physically lodged in the heart of her gilded cage. Now it was time for dinner. Dinner was a special kind of torture. The Henderson endorsement is finally secured, her father announced, slicing into his herb-crusted salmon with surgical precision. He didn't look at her, his focus on some distant political horizon. That makes 3 major backers for the campaign. They're not just investing in a candidate, Sophie. They're investing in a family. A unit that represents stability, integrity, and the absolute pinnacle of achievement. He finally glanced up, his gaze sweeping over her. Which is why your performance on the LSATs this fall is critical. The narrative is like father, like daughter. I want that narrative to be airtight. Sophie felt the words like physical blows. Integrity. Pinnacle of achievement. She pushed the food around her plate, the once appetizing salmon now looking like a slab of dead flesh. Her mother, Charlotte, sat silently, offering a weak, performative smile. She was the curator of their family's image, her role to ensure everything remained photogenic and serene. She would be devastated, not by the pregnancy itself, but by the social humiliation, the whispered gossip at the country club. "You're quiet tonight, Sophie," her father noted, his voice deceptively mild. "Everything all right? You look pale." The direct question felt like a searchlight. "I'm fine," she managed, her voice a thin, reedy thing. "Just tired. Studying." He studied her for a moment longer, his lawyer's eyes missing nothing, and yet seeing only what he wanted to see. "Good. Just remember, there is no room for error. Not now. The world is watching." The rest of the meal passed in a blur of her father's monologues and the oppressive clink of silverware on fine china. Each word, each sound, hammered home the impossible reality of her situation. The walls of her life, once representing security and privilege, were now closing in, and she was trapped in the center. Later, Sophie is huddled on her bed, the lights off. She clutches her phone like a lifeline, her finger hovering over Mateo's contact. The moment her bedroom door was closed, she locked it, her back pressed against the cool wood. She needed to hear a friendly voice. She needed Mateo. He answered on the 3rd ring, his voice a low, familiar murmur. "Hey, Soph, what's up?" "Mateo," she whispered, the tears she'd been holding back finally spilling over. I'm pregnant." The silence on the other end was absolute and deafening. It stretched for so long she thought the call had dropped. "You're… what?" he finally said, his voice stripped of all its usual easy confidence. "How? We were careful." "I don't know," she cried, desperation clawing at her throat. "But it's true. I took 3 tests. Mateo, my dad, he'll kill me, he'll…" Okay, just calm down," he said. But his voice was tight with his own panic. "Look, this is a problem, but it's a solvable one. There's a clinic. My cousin went to one. We can take care of it. Nobody has to know. Take care of it." The phrase was so cold, so clinical. It made her feel like a problem to be managed, a mess to be cleaned up. Where was the "we'll figure it out together"? Where was the reassurance? This was the boy who'd sworn he loved her under the stadium bleachers just last month. You don't understand, she sobbed, feeling more alone than she ever had in her life. It's not that simple. My dad, the campaign, it would be everywhere. I can't just go to a clinic. Well, what do you want to do, Sophie? He snapped, his own fear turning to anger. Have it? Are you crazy? Our lives would be over. My parents would send me away. Your dad would… God, I don't even want to think about it. There's no other option. No other option. The words echoed in the hollow space he left when he abruptly ended the call, saying he needed to think. Sophie was left sitting in the dark, the silence of her room now a mocking presence. Mateo wasn't her knight in shining armor. He was just a scared boy, and he had left her to face the dragon alone. Terror, cold and absolute, flooded her veins. She was utterly, completely alone with this. There was no way out, no solution. She was going to have to tell her parents, and her life, as she knew it, would be over. Her gaze, blurred with tears, drifted aimlessly around her room. The curated bookshelves, the equestrian trophies, the vanity littered with expensive products, all the trappings of a life that was about to be stripped from her. It landed on the framed photograph on her dresser. The Alex family, smiling perfectly. A trophy from a charity event her father had sponsored. And there, in the background, just a sliver of his uniform, was the cleaner, Elijah. He was wiping down a table, his body turned away from the camera, a phantom in his own workplace. Invisible. The thought arrived not as a whisper, but as a full-blown, horrifying narrative, fully formed in her panic-stricken mind. He's nobody. No one would question it. My father would believe me over him in a heartbeat. He's the perfect excuse, the perfect solution. It was monstrous. It was unthinkable. And yet, in the twisted logic of her sheer, undiluted terror, it was also perfect. He was the only variable in their controlled environment, the one person whose word held no weight against theirs. He was the trapdoor, the emergency exit from her own life. She wouldn't really do it, of course. It was just a dark fantasy, a way to momentarily escape the crushing weight of her reality. A story she was telling herself to stop from screaming. But as she sat there in the dark, the seed of the lie took root. It was small and ugly, but it was alive, and it was starting to grow. Robert Alex ended the call, a satisfied smirk playing on his lips. The polls were looking good. The tough on crime, strong on family message was resonating. He was crafting a narrative, and the public was buying it. He allowed himself a moment to appreciate the silent, imposing elegance of his office, a testament to the life he had built from nothing but will and ambition. The peace was shattered by a soft, frantic knocking. Before he could answer, the door creaked open to reveal Sophie. Her face was a mess of tears and splotchy red skin, her entire body trembling. She looked like a ghost of his polished, perfect daughter. Instantly, his political persona vanished, replaced by a father's alarm. Sophie, what is it? What's happened? She stumbled into the room, wrapping her arms around herself as if she were falling apart. Daddy, she choked out, the word a broken sob. A cold dread, entirely different from the anxiety of a slipping poll number, gripped him. He stood and came around the desk, guiding her to the leather Chesterfield sofa. Talk to me, now. His voice was firm, a command. She crumpled onto the couch, unable to look at him. The story tumbled out in hysterical, jagged pieces. She'd been in the laundry room, getting a fresh towel. He'd come in. The cleaner, Elijah. He'd blocked the door. He'd said things. His hands. She couldn't finish. She buried her face in her hands, her shoulders racking with silent, violent sobs. The world stopped. A red haze descended over Robert Alex's vision. Every instinct, every carefully constructed principle of law and order evaporated. This wasn't an abstract crime statistic for a campaign speech. This was in violation. A desecration. His daughter. In his home. The home he paid for, secured, controlled. The man he had allowed into his sanctuary had betrayed him in the most fundamental way imaginable. The cold dread in his gut solidified into a diamond-hard glacial fury. It was not directed at the sobbing girl before him, but at the face of the young black man he pictured in his mind. The quiet one, the one who kept his eyes down. A facade. A monster hiding in plain sight. He placed a steadying hand on Sophie's shoulder, his voice dropping to a low, deadly calm. "Did he hurt you?" She shook her head, still not looking up. "No. I fought him off. I ran." A part of him, the part that had cross-examined hundreds of witnesses, noted the vagueness, the lack of specific, brutal detail. But it was a tiny, flickering signal drowned out by the siren blare of his rage and paternal instinct. Of course she was vague. She was traumatized. She was protecting herself. "You will not be punished for this," he said, his tone leaving no room for argument. "You have done nothing wrong. This ends. Now." Robert Alex stands, his back to Sophie. He picks up his personal cell phone, his movements precise and deliberate. The camera focuses on his face, which is a mask of cold determination. He didn't reach for the house phone. He didn't dial 911. That was for civilians, for people who had to wait in line for justice. He scrolled through his contacts and hit a number he used for golf games and private dinners. "Bill," he said, when the police chief answered. His voice was flat, devoid of its usual political charm. "It's Robert Alex. I have a situation at my home." He relayed the facts as he knew them. The cleaner, the laundry room, the assault. He stripped it of Sophie's emotion, presenting it as a cold, hard case. But his language was deliberate, weighted. "My daughter. In my home. The man I employ." He didn't need to say more. Chief Bill Henderson heard everything he needed to hear in the controlled fury of Robert's voice. "I'm sending a unit now, Robert," Henderson said. "All business. We'll pick him up." "No," Robert cut him off. "Not a unit. I want him surprised. I want him to understand the gravity of what he's done. Send your tactical team. I want this handled with maximum discretion but unequivocal force. I'll text you the address." He ended the call and immediately placed another. This one to the district attorney, Margaret Lowe. "Margaret, Robert, we have a developing situation. A sexual assault. My daughter, Sophie, is the victim. The perpetrator is Elijah Johnson. I've already spoken to Bill. I expect your office to pursue this to the fullest extent of the law. I want this animal buried." The machine was now in motion. His machine. With 2 phone calls, he had set the entire criminal justice system upon one man. He felt a grim sense of satisfaction. This was what power was for. To protect what was his. To erase threats with brutal efficiency. From the back of his town car, parked a discreet distance away, Robert watched through the tinted window. He needed to see this. He needed the confirmation. Men in tactical gear, armed with rifles, poured out of the vehicles. They moved like a single organism, swarming the front door. He saw the curtains in the ground floor apartment twitch. He saw the front door open a crack, then burst inward under the force of a battering ram. His phone vibrated. A text from an unknown number. A single photo, taken from inside the apartment. It showed Elijah Johnson, in a simple white t-shirt and sweatpants, being forced to his knees on his own living room floor. His hands were wrenched behind his back and secured with zip ties. His face, caught in the camera's flash, was a perfect canvas of shock and terror. Robert Alex studied the image. He saw no monster. He saw a boy, a frightened young man. For a fraction of a second, the narrative in his mind wavered. Then, he saw the other figures in the blurred background of the photo. A woman, his mother presumably, her hands clasped over her mouth in horror. A younger girl, crying. Neighbors gathering on the street, their phones out. Good, he thought, the moment of doubt extinguished. Let them see. Let them all see what happens when you touch what's mine. The image wasn't one of tragedy. It was one of justice being served, swift and severe. He typed a quick reply. Keep me updated. Then he told his driver, take me home. Later that night, back in his office, Robert Alex is met by Detective Brenda Miller. She is a woman in her late 40s, with a tired but sharp gaze, a folder in her hand. Detective Miller sat across from him, her posture professional, but her eyes holding a hint of wariness. Mr. Alex, we have Johnson in custody. He's been processed and is awaiting questioning. Good, Robert said, steepling his fingers. I trust you have everything you need for a swift indictment. We're building the case, she said carefully, opening the folder. But sir, I have to be frank. The physical evidence is thin. There's no bruising on Sophie. No torn clothing. The forensics team did a sweep of the laundry room. Nothing was out of place. No signs of a struggle. She let the words hang in the air. They were not accusations, but facts. To Robert, they felt like challenges. My daughter was assaulted, he said, his voice dropping to a dangerous low register. Are you calling my daughter a liar, detective? No, sir, she replied, meeting his gaze unflinchingly. Not at all. Trauma manifests in different ways. It's just, the case, as it stands, is her word against his. We have no corroborating evidence. A good defense attorney will pick it apart. Robert leaned forward, his presence filling the room. He was no longer just a grieving father. He was the district attorney in waiting, a man who knew how the levers of power worked. Then, find corroborating evidence, detective, he said, his voice icy and absolute. Find a witness who saw him acting strangely. Re-interview my daughter. The trauma may have clouded some details. I am confident your investigation will uncover what needs to be uncovered to put this predator away for a very, very long time. He wasn't asking. He was directing. He was defining the reality he required. Detective Miller held his gaze for a moment longer, then slowly closed her folder. The doubt in her eyes was still there, but it was now buried under the weight of his authority. She gave a curt nod. We'll continue our investigation, sir. As she left, Robert turned his chair to look out the window at his perfectly manicured estate. The threat had been neutralized. The machine had worked. The first small crack of doubt had been sealed shut, not with truth, but with sheer, unassailable will. The world had become a series of disconnected, brutal sensations. The cold of the metal bench that seeped through his sweatpants. A deep, bone-ache chill that felt permanent. The stench. A thick, aggressive cocktail of stale sweat, industrial bleach, and something else. Something sour and human. The relentless, buzzing hum of the fluorescent light fixture overhead. A sound that drilled directly into his skull. Elijah replayed the last few hours on a nightmarish loop. The thunderous bang as the door exploded inward. The terrifying, shadowy figures in body armor. The cold zip ties cutting into his wrists. His mother's scream, a sound he'd never heard before. A sound of pure, animal terror. Keisha's crying. The faces of his neighbors, their eyes wide with a mixture of fear and morbid curiosity. It had happened so fast, with such overwhelming force, that his mind still hadn't caught up. One moment he was home, the next he was a prop in a terrifying play, his life rewritten in the language of shouted commands and slammed doors. This is a mistake. The thought was a fragile raft in a stormy sea. They'll figure it out. They have to. They'll ask me what happened, and I'll tell them, and this will all be over. The heavy metal door of his cell clanged open, making him flinch. A bored-looking guard jerked his head. "Johnson, up, your lawyer's here." Hope, desperate and naive, flared in his chest. Finally. Mark Duvall dropped a thick file folder onto the table with a sigh that seemed to carry the weight of the entire justice system. He didn't make eye contact, instead rifling through the papers. "Elijah Johnson? Mark Duvall. I've been assigned to your case." He finally looked up, his eyes tired. "Okay, let's start from the beginning. The accusation is from Sophie Alex. She says you assaulted her in the laundry room yesterday around 4 p.m. Elijah stared, his mouth agape. "What? No, that's insane. I was done cleaning by 3:30. I was on the bus by 3:45. I have my bus pass, the timestamp." "I know," Mark interrupted, holding up a hand. "I know, but that's her story. And it's her story against yours." He leaned forward, his voice lowering. "Look, Elijah, I'm going to be straight with you. The Alex family, they're not just anybody. The father, Robert, is a powerhouse. He's got the police chief and the DA on speed dial. They're going to throw the entire book at you." He pulled out a single sheet of paper and slid it across the table. "This is a plea deal. Aggravated assault. They're offering 15 years. You plead guilty, you avoid a trial, and the possibility of a life sentence." The words landed like physical blows. 15 years. He would be nearly 40 when he got out. His mother would be old. Keisha would be a full-grown woman. His business plan, his future, it would all be dust. "No," Elijah whispered, his voice cracking. Then stronger, fueled by a surge of righteous anger. "No, I'm not pleading guilty to something I didn't do. I'm innocent." Mark sighed again, a sound of profound exhaustion. "Elijah, listen to me. Innocence isn't always the point. The point is what they can prove, or what a jury can be persuaded to believe. You're a young black man. She's a rich white girl from a powerful family. You have a prior. A prior. I was a kid. I got in a fight at school. It doesn't matter. On paper, it's history of violence. They will use it. They will paint you as a predator who saw an opportunity. The jury will look at you, and they will look at her. And..." He trailed off, letting the grim reality hang in the air. 15 years is a gift. If we go to trial and lose, you will die in prison. Elijah felt the walls of the tiny room closing in. This wasn't justice. This was a transaction. His life for their convenience. He looked his lawyer dead in the eye, the fear in his gut hardening into something cold and stubborn. I am not saying I'm guilty. I will never say that. I'm innocent. Mark studied him for a long moment, then slowly retrieved the plea deal and tucked it back into his folder. Okay, he said, with no hint of optimism. Then we fight, but you need to understand what you're in for. Later, Elijah is in a common area with a few other inmates. A small wall-mounted television is tuned to the local news. The sound is low, but the images are clear. Elijah was trying to shut out the world, to make himself small and invisible, when a familiar face flashed on the screen. It was his own booking photo, looking dazed and terrified. Splashed next to it was a smiling, pristine yearbook photo of Sophie Alex. A blonde news anchor with a grave expression spoke into the camera. Shocking crime that has rocked the affluent Crestview Hills community. Sophie Alex, the teenage daughter of prominent district attorney candidate Robert Alex, is reportedly recovering at home after a brutal assault allegedly at the hands of family employee Elijah Johnson. The screen cut to a press conference. Robert Alex stood at a podium, his arm protectively around a visibly distraught Sophie, who hid her face in his shoulder. Mr. Alex's voice was thick with emotion. We are devastated. We opened our home to this individual, and he betrayed our trust in the most heinous way imaginable. My daughter is showing incredible strength. We have full faith that the justice system will ensure this predator is held fully accountable for his crimes. Predator. The word echoed in the common room. Elijah felt the eyes of the other inmates on him. Their looks were no longer indifferent. They were sharp, judgmental. The news segment continued, showing footage of his apartment building. A reporter was interviewing a neighbor he barely knew, who said into the microphone, "He was always so quiet. You just never know, do you? It's terrifying. You just never know." The narrative was set. It was already being woven into the fabric of the city's consciousness. He wasn't Elijah Johnson, the son, the brother, the aspiring businessman. He was Elijah Johnson, the monster. The public had tried and convicted him in the court of public opinion, and the verdict was guilty. A large inmate walked past him, muttering under his breath just loud enough for Elijah to hear. "Damn animal." Elijah turned away, his hope crumbling to ash. The system wasn't just against him. The whole world was. It's night. The cell is dark, lit only by the pale, sickly green glow of an emergency light in the corridor. The cell door clanged shut for the night, the sound final and absolute. This was his new home. The concrete bunk, the stainless steel toilet in the corner, the roommate, a hulking shadow snoring on the top bunk. This was real. The stubborn defiance he'd felt in the interrogation room had evaporated, replaced by a despair so profound it felt like a physical weight on his chest, making it hard to breathe. He thought of his mother's face, of Keisha's. What were they going through? The shame, the fear, the financial ruin his legal battle would bring. He was alone, truly, utterly alone. The truth was a tiny, fragile thing inside him, and it was being smothered by the immense, crushing machinery of the state, of public opinion, of sheer, unadulterated power. A single, hot tear escaped and traced a path down his temple, disappearing into the thin, scratchy pillow. He didn't bother to wipe it away. More followed. Silent, helpless tears for the life that had been stolen from him in a single, bewildering afternoon. He was innocent. But in here, surrounded by the sounds of cages and the smell of despair, innocence felt like the most worthless currency in the world. The buzzing of the light was the only lullaby he had. It was the sound of his new reality, the sound of the fall. Lena's world was one of quiet observation. In the ecosystem of Crestview High, she was neither predator nor prey, but a careful naturalist, studying the behaviors of the more dominant species from a safe distance. Species like Sophie Alex. The Gilded Age Project chat was buzzing, a constant, annoying flutter on the edge of her concentration. Sophie, of course, was the de facto project manager, delegating tasks with the effortless authority of someone who'd never been told no. Sophie. Jason, you handle the economic data. Chloe, the political cartoons. Lena, you can compile the bibliography. Sophie. My dad is having the presentation boards professionally printed. No poster board crap. Lena sighed, highlighting a paragraph on her screen. It was easier to just do the work than to argue. She was compiling a bibliography on the vast wealth disparity of the 19th century, while living it in real time in a group chat. The irony was not lost on her. Her phone buzzed again, a different, sharper tone, a direct message. She glanced at it. It was from her friend Maya, sending a meme. As she swiped it away, her thumb accidentally tapped the group chat. And there it was, a new message from Sophie. Not text, a voice note, a long one. The timestamp showed it had been sent just seconds ago. Lena frowned. Sophie usually communicated in brusque, perfectly punctuated texts. A voice note was messy, personal, out of character. Curiosity, that fatal flaw of all naturalists, got the better of her. She plugged in her headphones and tapped play. The audio is crisp and intimate in Lena's ears. We hear Sophie's voice, but it's raw, strained, and thick with tears, a stark contrast to the polished, confident tone she uses at school. Oh my God, Sasha. I don't know what to do. I'm freaking out. I'm pregnant. Lena's eyebrows shot up. This was private. This was major. Mateo is being a total dick about it. He just said to get rid of it. Like it's nothing. My dad. He'll literally kill me. He'll disown me. This will ruin everything. The campaign. Everything. Lena's initial shock began to curdle into something else as Sophie's hysterical monologue continued. The tears were real. The panic was palpable. For a fleeting second, Lena felt a pang of unexpected sympathy for the golden girl. The gilded cage, it seemed, had bars. Then the tone shifted. The panic hardened into something colder, something calculating. But I was thinking, I have an idea, a way out. A shaky breath. That cleaner, Elijah, the black guy who cleans our house. If I say it was him, no one would doubt me. My dad would believe me in a second. He's always been weird about him anyway. I just have to say he cornered me in the laundry room or something. It's perfect. He'll take the fall. Nobody will ever believe him. The air left Lena's lungs. It wasn't a confession. It was a blueprint for a murder, a character assassination. She felt a cold knot tighten in her stomach. She'd seen the news. Everyone had. Elijah Johnson. The face they were all calling a monster. She'd seen his photo, the one they kept using, and remembered thinking he didn't look like a monster. He looked scared. And now she knew why. Her eyes were glued to her phone screen, as Sophie's final chilling words, "Nobody will ever believe him," hung in the air. Lena saw it happen. The voice note disappeared. Sophie deleted a message. The notification appeared where the audio had been. A digital ghost. Sophie had realized her catastrophic error. She had sent her monstrous secret to the one audience she could never control. The truth. Lena stares at her phone, her heart hammering against her ribs. Her thumb, acting on an instinct deeper than thought, jabs at the screen. A red recording icon appears. She hits stop. She opens her photo gallery. There it is. A screen recording. The entire voice note, from start to finish, including the notification of its deletion. Her hands were trembling. She hadn't even consciously decided to do it. It was a reflex, like catching a falling glass. A preservation instinct. The truth had fallen, and she had caught it. She now held a loaded weapon in the palm of her hand. She played it back, her blood running cold as she listened to the lie being conceived. It was all there. The pregnancy, the boyfriend, the cold, calculated decision to destroy an innocent man because he was convenient, because he was disposable. Her first, primal instinct was to act, to send it to the news, to post it online, to scream from the digital rooftops, "He's innocent." But then the fear came, cold, slick, and paralyzing. This wasn't just exposing a classmate's secret. This was declaring war on the Alex family. Robert Alex wasn't just a dad. He was an institution. He had judges on speed dial. He could destroy her family with a well-placed lawsuit. He could make her life a living hell. She pictured his face from the press conferences, that mask of righteous fury. That fury would be turned on her. She thought of Sophie's circle, the popular clique that ruled the school. They would eviscerate her. She would become a social pariah, the girl who betrayed one of their own for a cleaner. The weight of the audio file was immense. It felt heavier than her entire world. She opened her messaging app, her finger hovering over her older brother's contact. He was a law student. He would know what to do. But she stopped. She couldn't drag him into this. She couldn't drag anyone into this. She opened her email, drafting a message to the public defender's office. "I have evidence in the Elijah Johnson case." She typed the words, then stared at them. Was it traceable? Could they find her? Paranoia, the constant companion of those who hold dangerous secrets, began to whisper in her ear. With a frustrated sigh, she deleted the draft. She saved the audio file in 3 different places: her hidden cloud storage, a password-protected folder on her laptop, and a USB drive she tucked inside a hollowed-out book on her shelf. She was now the keeper of the truth. A truth that could free a man, but could also shatter her own life. She looked out her window at the dark, quiet street. Somewhere, Elijah Johnson was in a jail cell, and somewhere else, Sophie Alex was sleeping soundly in her mansion, believing her secret was safe. Lena was the only thread connecting them, the thread of truth, and she had no idea if she was strong enough to pull it. The air is thick with tension and the shouts of men. Time has passed. Elijah, now thinner, with a fading bruise on his cheekbone, stands alone against a wall, his eyes hollow. Time in prison wasn't measured in days or weeks, but in layers of hardening shell. Each layer was a humiliation, a threat, a moment of violence. The hopeful, defiant young man who had refused a plea deal was being systematically buried under the crushing weight of the system. A system that had a face. It was the guard who accidentally shoved him into a wall. It was the inmate, a hulking man named Reyes, who had cornered him in the showers 2 weeks ago, his breath hot and foul in Elijah's ear. "We don't like rapists in here, pretty boy," Reyes had snarified, his fist connecting with Elijah's kidney before he could even form a denial. The pain had been blinding, but the message was clearer. His guilt was a foregone conclusion, a brand seared onto him by the world outside. He no longer repeated, "I'm innocent," like a mantra. The words had become ash in his mouth. What was innocence in a place built on punishment? It was a fairy tale he'd once believed, a story from a life that felt like it belonged to someone else. He spent his days in a state of hyper-vigilant numbness, his body constantly braced for the next blow, his spirit fraying at the edges. He dreamed of the buzzing sound of the cleaning equipment, the scent of lemon polish. He dreamed of his mother's oxtail stew. Then he'd wake up to the clang of the cell door and the ever-present stench of despair. Hope was a dangerous luxury. It had become a flicker, a distant star on the verge of being swallowed by an infinite black sky. For Lena, time was measured in a different kind of prison, a prison of her own conscience. The secret was a live wire in her pocket, electrifying every moment of her day. The blue light of her laptop screen illuminates her tired face. A news website is open, displaying an article headlined, "Johnson Trial Date Set as Defense Alleges Flaws in Investigation." She was now an expert on the Elijah Johnson case. She followed every news update, every legal filing, with a morbid, obsessive compulsion. She saw the official narrative solidify. The brave Sophie, the monstrous Elijah. She saw the comments sections, a cesspool of racist vitriol that made her physically ill. She tried to rationalize her silence. "I'm just a kid. What can I do? The Alex family will destroy me. It won't even make a difference." But the excuses, once comforting, now rang hollow. Then she saw it. A local news segment, shared on social media. It was an interview with Elijah's mother, Vivian Johnson. Lena clicked play, her heart in her throat. The woman on the screen looked years older than the photo Lena had seen. Her eyes, the same shape as Elijah's, were pools of a grief so profound it seemed to swallow the light. Her voice trembled, but held a fierce, unshakable conviction. "My son is a good boy," she said, clutching a tissue so tightly her knuckles were white. "He has never hurt a soul. He has dreams. He was saving for school. They have taken everything from him. His name, his future, his spirit." I look at these lies on the news, and I don't recognize the person they are describing. My Elijah is in there, somewhere, and I am begging, if anyone knows anything, if anyone has any truth, please. Her voice broke on the last word. Please. A single hot tear traced a path down Lena's cheek, followed by another. She wasn't just watching a news story anymore. She was watching a mother's heart shatter on live television. The abstract injustice now had a face, a voice, a crushing, tangible weight. The fear was still there, a cold serpent coiled in her gut. But now it was met by a surge of something hotter, sharper: shame. Elijah lay on his thin bunk, staring at the graffiti-scratched ceiling. Reyes and his crew were playing cards a few feet away, their laughter like shards of glass. One of them, a wiry man named Dex, glanced over at him, a cruel smirk on his face. "Hey, Johnson, heard your mama was on TV crying for you," Dex sneered. "Should have thought about that before you messed with that rich white girl." The words were a physical blow, worse than any punch. They had dragged his mother into this. They were using her pain as a weapon against him. A fresh wave of despair, black and suffocating, washed over him. He turned his face to the wall, closing his eyes, trying to disappear. The last layer of his spirit felt like it was crumbling to dust. For Lena, the image of Vivian Johnson's face was burned onto the back of her eyelids. The whispered, "Please," echoed in her mind. She looked at the news article still open on her screen, then at the password-protected folder on her desktop labeled Gilded Age Research. The burden was too heavy. She couldn't carry it anymore. It was going to break her. With a choked sob of frustration and fear, she opened the folder. She selected the audio file. Her finger hovered over the delete key. This was it. This was the way out. Delete it. Pretend she never heard it. Let the world take its course. She could go back to being invisible, to being safe. Her thumb pressed down. A dialog box appeared. "Are you sure you want to permanently delete Project Research Audio M4A? This action cannot be undone." She saw Elijah's booking photo in her mind. She heard his mother's voice. She heard Sophie's cold, plotting tone. "He'll take the fall." A switch flipped inside her. It wasn't about courage anymore. It was about something more basic. She simply could not be the person who deleted the truth. She could not become part of the machine that was grinding an innocent man into dust. She canceled the action. Instead, with a new, grim determination, she right-clicked the file. Not delete. Copy. She opened a new, encrypted cloud storage account under a fake name she'd created months ago for this very purpose. She dragged the file into the folder. It uploaded, a digital life preserver thrown into an infinite dark ocean. She didn't send it. Not yet. But she had preserved it. She had chosen a side. The weight was still there, but it had changed. It was no longer the weight of a secret. It was the weight of a responsibility. Lena eating dinner with her family, the television playing a local news broadcast in the background. The pasta turned to ash in Lena's mouth. On the screen, standing on the courthouse steps, was Robert Alex. He looked like he'd just won the lottery, not like a man whose daughter had been through a traumatic ordeal. The camera flashes lit up his triumphant face. "A clear message," he was saying, his voice dripping with righteous authority. "That in our city, we will protect our children. We will believe our victims, and we will not rest until justice is served. The evidence against Mr. Johnson is overwhelming, and we are confident the court will see this predator removed from our streets for good." Predator. The word hit Lena like a punch. She saw the reporters nodding, the crowd of supporters behind him holding signs that read, "Justice for Sophie." They were building a monument to a lie, and they were doing it with smiles on their faces. Her father shook his head, clicking his tongue. Terrible thing. That poor girl. Glad they got the guy. Lena's knife clattered against her plate. The sound was deafening in the quiet room. "You okay, sweetie?" her mom asked. "Fine," Lena mumbled, her voice tight. "Just lost my grip." But inside, something had shattered. The careful wall of fear and self-preservation she had built around herself crumbled in an instant, washed away by a tidal wave of pure, white-hot fury. It wasn't just injustice anymore. It was a celebration of injustice. Robert Alex wasn't just trying to win a case. He was enjoying it. He was using Elijah's destruction as a stepping stone for his own power. The image of Elijah's mother, Vivian, her face etched with a grief that would never fade, flashed before her eyes. Then Elijah's own face, the one from the early news reports, full of confusion and terror. And then Sophie's voice, cold and clear. He'll take the fall. Nobody will ever believe him. They were all counting on her silence. They were betting on it. Her conscience didn't just whisper. It screamed. Enough. Later that night, Lena is at her laptop, the screen reflecting a determined fire in her eyes. She uses a secure browser, her fingers flying across the keyboard with a new, single-minded purpose. The fear was still there, a cold knot in her stomach, but it was now overshadowed by a resolve that felt like steel. She found the website for the public defender's office and, after more digging, the name of the attorney who had recently taken over Elijah's case, Ms. Anya Flores. A quick search showed articles praising her as a tenacious fighter for the wrongly accused. She was the one. Lena opened a secure, anonymous email service she had pre-registered under a fake name. Her heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic drumbeat of fear and adrenaline. She attached the audio file from her encrypted cloud drive. In the subject line, she typed, "Urgent evidence. Elijah Johnson case." Her message was brief and to the point, written with the clinical precision of someone trying to hold back a flood of emotion. To Ms. Flores, Elijah Johnson is innocent. The attached audio recording contains the accuser, Sophie Alex, admitting she fabricated the assault allegation to cover up her own pregnancy. She sent this to a group chat by mistake and immediately deleted it. I saved it. Please help him. A friend. She didn't allow herself to hesitate. She hit send. The email whooshed away into the digital void. A profound silence filled her room. The weight was still there, but it was different. It was no longer hers to carry alone. Anya Flores had taken the Johnson case pro bono because the public defender's file had screamed wrongful conviction to her seasoned instincts. The evidence was circumstantial, built on a foundation of prejudice and power, but proving it was like trying to grab smoke. When the anonymous email arrived, she almost archived it. Crank mail was part of the job, but something about the subject line made her pause. She plugged in her headphones and pressed play. Sophie Alex's voice filled her ears. The raw panic, the calculated lie, the chilling finality of, "Nobody will ever believe him." Anya sat perfectly still, her coffee forgotten. A slow, fierce smile spread across her face. This wasn't smoke. This was a lightning strike. This was the case. She worked through the night. First, she sent the file to a trusted digital forensics expert, a former colleague from her days as a federal prosecutor. The report came back before dawn. The audio was authentic. No signs of manipulation. The metadata confirmed it was recorded from Sophie Alex's phone on the day in question. As the sun began to rise, painting the city skyline in hues of orange and gray, Anya Flores began to type. She was no longer just a defense attorney. She was an avenger. The fire of righteous anger, the kind that had drawn her to law in the first place, burned brightly in her chest. Robert Alex's morning was interrupted by the doorbell. He opened the door, expecting a delivery, and was met by a process server. "Robert Alex, you've been served." The man handed him the envelope and walked away. Frowning, Robert tore it open. His eyes scanned the bolded heading. Emergency motion to dismiss. Newly discovered exculpatory evidence. People versus Elijah Johnson. His blood ran cold as he read on. The motion detailed the existence of a digital audio recording. It quoted Sophie's own words back at him. "He'll take the fall. Nobody will ever believe him." The smug confidence from the press conference evaporated from his face, replaced by a pallor of dawning horror. The perfectly constructed case, the public narrative, his political future. It was all built on a foundation of sand, and the tide had just come in. He stumbled back into his foyer, the legal papers trembling in his hand. The mansion had never felt so fragile, so silent. The machine he had so carefully built had just been jammed by a single, anonymous truth. The air is thick and still, heavy with the weight of impending judgment. Every wooden bench is filled, a sea of hushed, anticipatory faces. The camera sweeps past the Alex family, sitting ramrod straight in the front row, to the defense table. Elijah Johnson sat between his mother and Ms. Flores, wearing a suit that no longer fit his gaunt frame. The fabric felt foreign against his skin, a cruel costume for a play he never wanted to be in. He kept his eyes fixed on the grain of the wooden table, tracing its lines. Months in a cage had taught him the safety of small, contained spaces. The vastness of the courtroom felt like a trap. He was a ghost at his own trial, hollowed out, the hope that had once flickered within him now a cold, dead ember. He didn't dare believe this hearing was any different. It was just another step in the machine. Across the aisle, Robert Alex was a statue of tailored confidence, but a fine sheen of sweat glistened on his temple. He had tried to have the audio thrown out, calling it an illegal recording, a deep fake, the work of malicious activists. The judge had denied his motions. The battle was lost, but he was still fighting the war, his jaw clenched, refusing to look in Elijah's direction. Judge Wilkins, a stern woman with a face etched with the lines of 1,000 difficult decisions, entered the room. A hushed silence fell, so profound the buzz of the fluorescent lights became audible. "Counsel," the judge began, her voice echoing in the stillness. "You may proceed, Ms. Flores." Anya Flores stood, a picture of calm authority. "Thank you, Your Honor. The defense wishes to present new, exculpatory evidence that proves, beyond any doubt, that Elijah Johnson is the victim of a malicious and calculated lie." A murmur rippled through the courtroom. Robert Alex's knuckles were white as he gripped the table. "We submit into evidence," Ms. Flores continued, holding up a small digital player. A voice recording, authenticated by an independent digital forensics expert. It was recorded by Sophie Alex on the afternoon of the alleged assault. Sophie, sitting beside her father, went rigid. Her eyes, wide with dawning horror, darted to her father, but he was staring straight ahead, a muscle twitching in his jaw. "Your Honor, I must object," the prosecutor began, half rising. "Overruled, Mr. Davis," Judge Wilkins said coolly. "You've had your motions. Play the recording, Ms. Flores." Anya Flores pressed a button. "The audio is pristine," unnervingly clear in the silent courtroom. Sophie's voice, raw and hysterical, fills the space. Every word is a hammer blow. "Oh my God, Sasha, I don't know what to do. I'm freaking out. I'm pregnant." A collective, sharp intake of breath from the gallery. Robert Alex flinched as if struck. "Mateo is being a total dick about it. My dad. He'll literally kill me. This will ruin everything. The campaign. Everything." The camera cuts to Robert. The arrogant mask was slipping, revealing the pale, shocked face of a man beneath. He slowly turned his head to look at his daughter, his eyes wide with a devastating, dawning comprehension. Then, the tone on the recording shifted, turning cold and calculating. "But I was thinking. I have an idea. A way out. That cleaner. Elijah. The black guy who cleans our house. If I say it was him, no one would doubt me. My dad would believe me in a second. I just have to say he cornered me in the laundry room or something. It's perfect." A wave of disgusted murmurs swept the room. Elijah, for the first time, lifted his head. He was listening, truly listening. His brow furrowed not in anger, but in a profound, bewildered sadness. The recording delivered its final, chilling blow. "He'll take the fall. Nobody will ever believe him." Ms. Flores stopped the player. The silence that followed was louder than any explosion. Sophie let out a choked, guttural sob. Her body crumpled, her face buried in her hands as her shoulders shook uncontrollably. The perfect, polished facade was gone, replaced by the raw, ugly truth of what she had done. Robert Alex did not move to comfort her. He simply stared at her, his face a ruin. The arrogance was gone. The political ambition evaporated. In its place was a crushing, hollowed-out shame. He saw it all now, not just his daughter's lie, but his own eagerness to believe it, his use of it, his role as the engine of the injustice. He had not been a protector. He had been a weapon. His gaze slowly drifted across the aisle, and for a single, searing moment, his eyes met Elijah's. There was no anger there, just a deep, weary pity. Robert Alex looked away, his head bowing in defeat. Elijah watched the collapse of the Alex's family. He felt no triumph. He felt empty. The words that had just freed him were the same words that had described the world's view of him so perfectly. Nobody will ever believe him. He had been convicted the moment Sophie pointed a finger, long before any evidence was presented. The recording was just a technicality that happened to align with the truth. Judge Wilkins cleared her throat, the sound cracking the tense atmosphere like a stone through glass. She looked weary, as if the weight of the entire sordid affair rested on her shoulders. "The court has heard the evidence," she said, her voice heavy with gravity. She turned to Elijah. "Mr. Johnson, the charges against you are based on a demonstrable falsehood. This case is a profound failure, a failure of integrity, and a failure of the very justice system sworn to protect the innocent." She picked up her gavel. The sound was sharp, final, and utterly devoid of celebration. "The case against Elijah Johnson is dismissed. He is free to go." The gavel's echo hangs in the air. There is no cheering. The courtroom erupts not in celebration, but in a chaotic buzz of voices and the frantic clicking of cameras. Reporters scramble for the door to break the story. Elijah felt his mother's arms wrap around him, her body shaking with silent, relieved sobs. Ms. Flores placed a steadying hand on his shoulder. a small, grim smile on her face. "It's over, Elijah," she whispered. He nodded, but the words felt distant. He was free. The word was supposed to taste like victory. It tasted like dust and lost time. As he was led through a side door to avoid the media scrum outside, he took one last look back at the courtroom. Sophie was being helped out. A broken doll. Robert Alex remained seated, a broken king on a broken throne. Elijah Johnson walked out of the courthouse a free man, but he carried the courtroom with him. The memory of the lie, the sound of the gavel, and the heavy, silent truth that freedom and justice were not the same thing. It's dark, lit only by the orange glow of a street lamp filtering through the window. Elijah jolts awake, his body drenched in a cold sweat, his heart trying to beat its way out of his chest. The fading echo of a slamming metal door rings in his ears. Freedom was a room that still felt like a cell. The nightmares didn't care that he was home. They came every night, faithful as a curse. The smell of the prison, the sound of the locks, the leering face of Reyes. His mind replayed the horror show on a loop, reminding him that while his body was free, parts of his soul were still locked down. He was home, surrounded by his mother's desperate love and his sister's cautious smiles. But he was a stranger in his own life. The noise of the city was too loud. A slamming car door would make him flinch. The smell of industrial cleaner his mother used made his stomach turn. He was free, but he was haunted, a ghost haunting the ruins of the life he'd once had. The media had tried to anoint him a hero. There were interview requests, offers for book deals, invitations to speak about injustice. He refused them all. Their narrative wanted a triumphant ending, a story of good conquering evil. But he didn't feel triumphant. He felt gutted. The world had wanted to bury him, and now it wanted to put him on a pedestal. Both felt like ways of refusing to see the broken man in the middle. A few days later, Elijah finds a plain, unmarked envelope tucked into the screen door. His name is written on the front in neat, anonymous handwriting. He opened it cautiously. Inside was a single sheet of paper. No name, no return address. "Elijah, you don't know me, but I was the one who had the recording. I heard what she said. I knew the truth. I am so sorry. I am sorry I was scared. I am sorry I waited. I am sorry you had to live through hell because of my silence. What was a few months of fear for me was a lifetime of damage for you. What happened to you should never happen to anyone. I hope one day you can find a way to be okay. Someone who is trying to be better." Elijah read the note 3 times. He pictured a faceless person, trembling with the same fear he now carried. They had been a thread of truth in a tapestry of lies. They had been scared, just like him. But in the end, they had been brave. He didn't feel anger toward them. The note didn't bring closure, but it was a small, unexpected balm on a deep wound. It was a reminder that in the darkness, there had been one other person who knew the sky was blue, even when everyone was insisting it was black. He folded the note carefully and put it in the drawer with his business plan. It was a piece of the story he would keep. He had gone back to work. Not for the Alexis, of course. For a small, nondescript company that didn't ask questions. The work was the same, but he was not. Every swipe of the rag, every sweep of the mop was different now. This wasn't a stepping stone to a dream anymore. It was an act of reclamation. It was him telling the world that they could not soil this for him. They could not take his hands, his work, his dignity. He would not let them. He finished the window, leaving it spotless. For a moment, he saw his own reflection superimposed over the city lights. A quiet man in an empty building. A survivor in a world that had tried to erase him. He looked out at the thousands of lit windows, each one a different life, a different story. His was now one of scars and silence. The truth had set him free, but it had not made him whole. The system had released him, but it had not absolved him in the eyes of many who had already made up their minds. He carried the burden of his ordeal, a weight he knew he might always bear. The truth had freed him, but it hadn't healed him. Because for men like Elijah, justice doesn't come with celebration. It comes with scars, silence, and the burden of being right too late.